everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. Why do we look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago? Because we want to understand what made these books hot 6 months ago, how they performed since, so we can all maybe make a little better decisions when we're chasing books in the moment of when they're popular, when they're hot, by looking back and seeing how they continue to do, what factors made them stay hot, what factors made them maybe fall back, where if you'd been patient, you'd been better off. So this week we're looking back at the hot comics from April 24th and 25th, because we look at two lists that come out on 2 days, 2020, and I'm recording this on October 23rd, 2020. As always, the dates are just about so you understand when I made this list, and so because these things change, and so it may, just because the books have fallen back now or are still doing good doesn't mean 6 weeks from now they'll still be doing that. So we also are always, as always, are looking back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic Tom Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week. They each put out a list of 10. Technically, Key Collector puts out 20, but Tom focuses on 10. Between those two lists, we got 17 books to talk about this week. So here in just a moment, we're going to get into that. But if you are watching this video on the day it's released of October 24th, 2020, tonight on Bear Island Comics is the premiere of The Last Con. I play a little bit of a role in that. I highly recommend you go watch that tonight. There's my shameless plug for my friend Bear. He's been working on this video all year, for months now. It's going to be fantastic. Definitely go check it out if you have time tonight at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Bear Island Comics. Now, without further ado, let's get into this week's list. Like I said, we have 17 books, and we have 3 books at the beginning that are related to option news. First up, we have Mouse Guard #1. This was a book that made the list last week as well. And this basically had everything to do with there had been a movie planned. It had got killed when DC bought Fox. Netflix then had bought the rights to any Boom Studio products, their first refusal. So people were hoping that that might re-energize this movie, bring it back. So back then, raw copies were all the way up to $200, which they were just above $100 last week, but this week they jumped all the way up to $200. 9.8 went for $425. Now these are going for $50, $60. 9.8, there's only been 2 recent sales, $455 and $155, and the $155 was actually assigned. So over 3 months, 2 9.8 sales is not a really good gauge. Overall, this book is definitely down because most of the sales are those raw copies, and they are way down. So this one definitely was one to be patient on and not chase the hype of the moment. Next, we have Grimjack #1, and this hit the list because the Russo brothers reportedly were working on a screenplay. Back then, there was 1,000% increase in sales. That's why Tom and Key Collector put it on the list. Raw copies were going for $5 to $10. Now, raw copies are going for $1 to $5. There was a recent 9.8 sale of $150, but that's literally the only sale. Yeah, this one was definitely, I say this is an I'll be back. It's definitely down, and I would call this an I'll be back instead of a trap, just because if the Russo brothers are writing a script, potentially there's some potential here, and at 5 to 10, it really wasn't that crazy of an investment, but definitely one that was worth waiting. Our last option news book is One Punch Man, the free comic book day from 2016. And basically this was because Sony was reportedly going to try to make a movie of this series. If you don't follow Japanese manga or anime, because there's an anime of this show, of this manga as well, you might not know anything about this. It's a riot. It's a lot of fun. I recommend you check it out if you like superhero type stuff. All the tropes of superheroes, they kind of stomp on. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, if it was me, I would be chasing the original manga, which is pretty valuable. But people were going after this free comic book day because it was actually in comic format. Back then, it was going anywhere from $20 to $65, although most of the sales were in the $20 range. Mind you, this had been a free book, and there might be a lot of these out there, but it still is going for $20 to $35. 9.8s are bringing $200 to $300. So this one's been pretty steady. Definitely a fun series. Like I said, if you ever get a chance, you should probably check it out. Next, we have kind of an oddball of the week, or, well, maybe not our oddball of the week, but definitely a little different. Not a category we see every week, and that is Dreadstar #1. And this hit the list because Jim Starlin had launched a Kickstarter to do a new 100-page Dreadstar story. So he was bringing it back. That brought up renewed interest in this book. It jumped to a $5 to $10 book, which is, again, not very much, but it was like a 500% increase. And now in sales numbers, and now it's a $1 to $5 book. 9.8 still running at 70 to 100, but not much interest in this right now. We'll see if maybe there's a little peak of interest once Jim Starlin actually releases the Kickstarter, but yeah, not much going on with this one. Next, we have new book. And reminder, this was still during the period where there weren't new books really coming out, but this was Our Fighting Forces, the Walmart 100-page giant. It actually hit the shelves during this period, and there was a lot of interest in this. It was selling for $15 back then, and the reason for that was, and I'm not sure how this works, but there was supposedly one of the stories in it was a true story about a Medal of Honor winner that they'd included Batman in. So I'm not sure how they did a true story about a Medal of Honor winner and included Batman, but that's what they did. So this one has dropped back to just 5 to 10 right now, but any story, if it really is true and a good telling of a Medal of Honor winner, is probably worth picking up and reading at some point. Just my personal opinion. So with that, we're moving into a more classic category, and we're going to be talking covers. We had 3 covers this week. First up, we have Oz #1, and this is just an early Art Germ sexy cover. Is really all you can say about this. It had been a kind of a $10 book, and it jumped up to a $20 to $40 book raw. Now, there's only been 4 recent sales, but they've all been in that $20 to $50 range. So this one's been pretty steady, but definitely one that you could be patient on and could find it for the lower end rather than the higher end. Next, our second cover is Gen 13 Bootleg #18, and this is a Bruce Timm variant that is pretty hard to find, and this was obviously way back before that more recent meme of the guy with his girl looking at the other girl that has been everywhere the last couple of years. This is kind of a precursor to that from a long time ago with Bruce Timm. And this one was going for $30, which was up from kind of a $10 to $15 book. And it's still going $15 to $40. So you can definitely find deals on this for in that $15, $20 range. But you can also, people are also paying up to $40. Most of the sales, though, realistically are $25, $30. So this one's been pretty steady over the last 6 months. Fairly hard to find, but they are out there. So our last cover of the week is Flash 750, the Boss Logic ECC Emerald City Comic Con variant. This book was going for, basically the trade dress was going for around $55. The other two, the Virgin and the alternate with the Reverse Flash, were going for a little more back then. They were talking mostly about the trade dress on the list. And this one's come sort of crashing back down. It's only a $10 to $20 book now. And that's for all 3 versions. All 3 versions you could grab for, well, not all 3 of them, but each individually can be grabbed for $10 to $20. So yeah, this one turned into a bit of a trap. There was more of these available than I think people realized. And yeah, so this one did not hold this was a con exclusive that did not hold its value, unlike, say, that yellow Wolverine and some others that we've seen this year. Next, we have another kind of oddball category, although this category was on the list last week, and this is Astonishing Tales #26. This is the second professional work of George Perez. And just like last week when Astonishing Tales 25 was on the list, this really had more to do with George Perez doing a CGC signing than anything to do with the book or the characters in the book. Back then, a raw copy was going for $25. 9.8s were going for $200. Now you can find raw copies, pretty nice ones really, for $5 to $15. Occasionally a really, really nice raw copy goes for a little more than that, goes for the $20 range. But for the most part, it's a $5 to $15 book. 9.8s, though, let me just rephrase. The only 9.8 sale in the last 3 months was for $250, so that's up a little bit. But again, that's one sale. It's hard to judge any kind of rate when there's there's not a lot of 9.8s out there, so sometimes people overpay when that's the case. And yeah, one sale, not much to go on. So overall, this book is definitely back down. We've got away from that George Perez signing. It kind of hit the list. It spiked a little bit because George doesn't sign much anymore. He's basically retired from cons, so this was a rare opportunity, and that's why people were chasing it. With that, we're going to move into comic buzz, although I'm not sure, I'll be honest, I'm not sure exactly what was prompting this first book that I put in the comic buzz category to make the list, and that was X-Men 266, First Gambit. Obviously a great book. I'm not sure what was prompting it. they didn't attach any rumors or anything to it at the time. But back then it was doing a 9.8, was hit 425, which was back up, where it had kind of been early in the year, and then it had fallen down to like a $300 book for 9.8, and now it's back over 425, so they put it on the list. Right now, raw copies of this are 100 to 175. 9.8s go for 5 to 500. This continues to be the book for Gambit, even though there's that X-Men Annual 16 that people have kind of now claiming is the first appearance because he's in it for multiple pages, his name said, and it did actually come out before this. So this might technically be the first cover, second appearance. Either way, this is probably always going to be the big money book because of the cover. Definitely a great book to have, and it's actually up from the spring, so not a real surprise there. Next, we're going to move into Venom, and more exclusively Venom number 3, and more specifically Venom, anything related to Null. First, we have Venom number 3, the Ori Molina 1 in 25, and obviously this number 3 is the first appearance of Null. Back then, this was a $150 book raw. 9.8s were going for $300, which prompted it to hit the list because all the craziness. I think this was the first time the King in Black storyline was starting to get buzz, and people were just starting to really jump on Null as a character, even though we really haven't seen that much from Null, but people have been going crazy for this Donny Cates run. Now this book is $150 to $300 raw, so it has crept up on the raw side. 9.8s have almost doubled to 5 to 600. So this is definitely, much like the regular cover of number 3, this is a big book, and it's continuing to climb. Just like our next one, which is maybe the biggest book of this whole Null thing, which is Venom number 3, the third print. So this is the first appearance of Null and first cover. We'll talk about that in just a second. Back then, raw copies were going for 100, 9.8s were going for 350. Now raw copies are 2 to 300, 9.8s. I got on the wrong line here. Make sure I'm looking at the right one. Are 450 to 600, which is actually down from late September, early October. They'd kind of peaked around 700. I don't know if that was actually the full peak from the summer, but they were definitely higher early in the month. But there's been a bunch of sales this month, so you can kind of see, and it's definitely been trending down, with the most recent sale being under 500, and a couple of sales in that 450 to 500 range. So this one seems to be trending back down, cooling off a little bit. King in Black storylines due to launch here anytime, probably going to go back up. But overall, over the last 6 months, this book is definitely up. This is kind of the book to get if you're a big fan of Null, because it's his first appearance and it's his first cover. Although the next book, Tom and Key Collector were arguing should be the book, which didn't make a lot of sense to me. Basically, this is Venom number 5, the Scan Frankie's Comics store exclusive, which is technically the first Null cover. And Tom and Key Collector were making this weird argument that this should be the book that people should focus on instead of that third print because it came out before the third print. But the third print is also his first appearance. So even though I'm not a huge fan of third prints, I would rather have the inside as his first appearance and he's on the cover would be a lot more attractive to me than just his first cover. I think they were more arguing that this book was just not getting a lot of love because it was only back then going for, Virgin was selling for 50. The set Virgin and Trade Dress was only bringing 70, which was only slightly more than the initial buy-in. And that book has definitely went up, like everything related to Null. Now, basically, raw copies of the trade go for 50 to 100. Of the Virgin go for 100 to 150. 9.8s of the trade do 100 to 150, and the Virgin do 2 to 250. So yeah, this book is definitely up. It did technically come out before the third print, but obviously it's not his first appearance, so that's why it doesn't bring that kind of money. And a very similar cover, very similar looking cover, a little different style, but for me, I would probably go after the third print before this one, but this is definitely a fun book to get for Noel. So, with that, we're going to move away from comic buzz, and we're going to move into Star Wars, which is, I've had to make its own category because, yeah, there's just been all kinds, as we all know, over the last year, 6-8 months for sure. There's been all kinds of Star Wars buzz. I can say it, I swear. First up, we have Darth Maul number 2, the 125 Aja variant, and this is its second week in a row. This is the first appearance of Cad Bane. Last week when we talked about it, it was around 70-ish. This week it was 85 plus, 85 to 100. And yeah, now it's a $150, $200 book raw, 9.8, going for 700, but there's only been 2 sales. So definitely, like everything Star Wars, it's up. It's really not much else to say about Star Wars right now. A lot of people specking on these Star Wars characters, and a lot of people chasing these books down. Our second Star Wars book this week is Darth Vader number 3, the first appearance of Dr. Aphra, and this is, of course, the regular cover. Back then, raw copies were going for 35, 9.8s were going for 130. And this book now is $40 to $60 for a raw copy. 9.8s, 2 to 250, which is both slightly down from where it peaked over the summer, but still up from 6 months ago. And definitely still a lot of interest in this book. No immediate plans. It doesn't appear to bring her to live action, but she's had 2 long-running series now. She's in her second series now. They've been making books about her. I think this is just a matter of time. This is a popular character. And like all Star Wars characters, it's going up. Finally, our last 2 books, kind of Sony Spider-Verse or just Spider-Verse in general, is where I kind of put these. And this is, first up is Amazing Spider-Man number 360, the cameo appearance of Carnage. And basically, I believe this is, I forget now for sure what I wrote because I didn't write it down, but I believe this is when the title dropped for Venom 2, Curse of Carnage, or now I don't remember what the title is. But anyway, the Carnage was in the title for the second Venom movie. Back then, that caused this book to jump to a $20 book because his first appearance was a little higher, so people were also grabbing this one. 9.8s were going for 165. This has been pretty steady. It's 10 to 20 for raw copies, so down a little bit. But 9.8s are still going 150 all the way up to 300, and they really are like 150 all the way to 300. Like, it's weird. You'll get a 150 sale, you get a 175 sale, you get a 225 sale, you get a 300 sale, you get a 180 sale, you get a 250 sale. Like, they've been all over that range, but people are still buying this book. And it's got a pretty wide range on a 9.8, so I would definitely kind of be patient, pick my spot there if that's what you're chasing. And our last book of the week is maybe It Begins, is probably what I should say. This is not the last time we'll see this book as we look back over the last summer. It was just really getting started back then, and that is Ultimate Fallout number 4, the first appearance of Miles Morales. We all know this has been just super hot all year. 9.8s back then cracked 500 for the first time, and they were like, woohoo! And yeah, we all know where the book went after that. Interestingly, the book appears to have kind of come back a little bit. Raw copies are $200 to $300 range. 9.8s are $900 to $1,000. 900 to 1,000. So this book actually appears to have come back some from the summer peak. It'll be interesting to see how all of as we follow these next 6 months. Because we've had a lot in the last few lists, and as we're starting to get into this, like the old percent, the first 18 months I did this look back list, it was about 70% of the books on the list would drop. 20%, these are rough numbers, but 20% would stay about the same, and 10% would go up. Obviously, if you've been watching this recently, those percentages have definitely changed. And they will definitely change probably for the summer as we go through some of these, but maybe not. Well, it'll be interesting to see how well these hold. Like, this is a book that's up, but now starting to come back down, so it'll probably hit the list later and it'll be down. So anyway, still a great book, still a straight cash book, if you can grab one of these. So I want to thank you guys for watching. A reminder to watch Bear Island Comics tonight at 9 o'clock if you're watching this on the day of release. 9 Eastern, for his premiere of The Last Con, and then come hang out with us for the after party after. And with that, we'll catch you later.